We are really excited today to talk about CX strategies in 2023, specifically around building sort of an ecosystem in this era of, the digital customer experience. We've got two really great guests today, Adam Renner and James Southworth. Quick background on them, and then we'll jump into this panel. Adam Renner has spent over 20 years working for major technology providers and working in just a broad range of functions, from solution engineering to product management to customer support. And then back in 2013, Adam co-founded Peakview Communications, which is a leader in the contact center transformation services space. There, Adam led the development and implementation of the contact center as a service evaluation and transformation process. And that's really been helping dozens of enterprises over the years successfully make a proper transition to the cloud. Currently, Adam is president of InflowCX, which acquired Peakview in 2021, and he continues today to lead the company's CX strategic direction and evolution of our offerings and our services. And then James has been in the contact center space for, again, over 22 years. He's at the forefront of the CCaaS movement as a co-founder of Five9 back in 2001. And then after Five9 had their initial IPO in 2014, he left and then co-founded Whendu, which is an iPaaS and automation platform for the contact center. Back in 2019, things actually came full circle when Five9 acquired Whendu, and then they turned it into their current workflow automation platform. So James now spends his time working with partners to build short and long-term go-to-market strategies focused strictly on Five9's AI solutions. James, Adam, first off, thank you guys both so much for joining me today. Really excited for this conversation.
Thanks, Austin.
Thank you. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of today in digital transformation, there's just a lot of changes in the market and, a ton going on. And James, you and Five9 are a leader in this space. What are some of the digital trends that you're seeing in the market right now?
Yeah, so thanks everybody for joining. Obviously, thank you, Austin. These are changing times in the customer service world, right? I like to call it kind of the golden age of the contact center or CX technology. And back in '99, the first company I worked for out of college actually got bought by Cisco, and John Chambers was the CEO. And I remember that he proclaimed in 1999 that quote unquote voice is dead. So I thought that was a little aggressive at the time, but 24 years later, I look at my nephew and my niece, and I don't think I've ever actually seen them use their phone to call somebody, ever. So it's used for everything but actually placing a moment. So now that I look back, he really knew what he was talking about. So I think we're all here today because we know that the digital transformation isn't coming, but it's here, right? It's happening. For example, over 60% of the companies have customers interacting with digital channels right now, right? And 81% of customers say they want more digital self-service options. Yet in this study by Forbes, only 15% of those customers expressed a high level of satisfaction with the tools that are currently being provided, right? So Austin, you kind of asked me about like the digital trends and what we're seeing in the market. And I think that data kind of tells us a lot about where we are, what we're seeing. I think we're seeing that the thirst for digital self-service in the market is real. But there is a huge gap between company and customer perceptions. And why do I think that's happening? And Five9, we think that happening is an understanding of the customer, right? Better understanding the customer. We know that 70% of organizations are saying barriers to personalizing or personalization of experience is not having the right access to data. And I think you're going to hear us talk a lot about data, but we'll save that for later. I think furthermore, technology is being created and deployed at such a rapid speed right now. Even some providers of that technology don't really truly understand it, right? So regardless of where you are in your transformation, I think it's critical to identify and work with the right vendors, the right partners that have experience, have data scientists, study trends in the market, both short and long term, to kind of help build your long-term rollout strategy if that's something that you're looking for. And I think it's important to look for a few things in vendors. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I think we'll talk about that later, but Adam, would love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, but I also think this term digital transformation, AI, it reminds me of, I'm old now, but reminds me of when VoIP came around. Everyone's like, there's VoIP. Like, what does that mean? Then there's cloud. What does that mean? What is digital transformation? It means a lot of things. And AI and self-service, that means a lot of things. And I think in the contact center space, people have been burned in the past around this great transformation that's going to happen by implementing a self-service. I mean, how many of you, I say that the self-service and AI and digital stuff today is very different than I call my grandpa's digital. We're used to call up a company and they tried to implement self-service and it was a horrible experience. So the customer had a terrible experience. The business didn't get the ROI that they're looking for. And that transformation kind of put up where there was a pause, and there was all this time that went by where there wasn't a lot of innovation. And then a few years ago, the technology finally became relevant. You can get an ROI, it's personalized, it's intelligent, and you can actually give a good customer experience. And that's that excitement that James was talking about that we are in right now, is that it actually is there. And it's really more now going to be about the how. How do you deploy this properly? What do you need to be thinking about? Versus in the past, it was, oh, we have self-service. We're just going to self-service everything. And that's going to be our transformation. We're going to transform it. And it ended up, it doesn't work that way. You have to really be thoughtful about how you're putting that digital transformation, these technologies into place.
Yeah. And based on that, Adam, you bring up a good point. One of the key areas that we're seeing right now, especially with the proliferation of chat GPT, and I feel like every time I log into my computer, there's a new .ai, something, right? A lot of these customers are inquiring about self-service. And, for someone, maybe that's either done it before, or if it's brand new to them, what are some of the key things that these organizations should keep in mind when they're considering adopting some of these technologies?
Yeah, and that kind of goes a little bit of what I said earlier. It's not oh my God, there's this new technology out there. I'm going to go ahead and deploy this technology and it's going to solve all my problems. Because technology is evolving so fast, there are, as you said, like a lot of .ai companies. We were at a conference about 10 months ago, and there were 147 companies that were at this conference that called themselves AI companies. And just maybe 4 years ago, there were 2, right? You have like Google and maybe somebody else. And so now you have all these companies. And so it really becomes a couple things. You have to think about, just because something like ChatGPT has come out and is getting a lot of press, is that right for your call center? You have to look at your strategy. Where do you want to implement that? And then underlying technology is just one element that you need to be thinking about. I call it orchestration. The orchestration of that technology that gets put into place that enables your agents to do their job, as well as enable your customers to get the better experience, and accessing information to make that work, right? So a lot of customers, I've even seen it, they're calling me now, they're calling our company now. We have the chat GDPs out there, there's AI, what should I deploy for AI? And our answer is, well, what are you trying to accomplish as a company, right? Where are you as a company? I mean, are you able to absorb this? Do you have a plan? You need to set a plan to absorb these new technologies, because they're the promise that they've been talking about is here from an ROI and a customer experience, but you have to have a plan and strategy. And just because like something like ChatGPT or these new technologies come out, you have to make sure that you're at the right evolution of your company and your customer experience center to adopt those properly. So James, I don't know.
I think it's like you literally hit the nail on the head in terms of what I was going to say. Is it's like this digital transformation is unfolding, right? And or kind of you're changing your self-service infrastructure, but you go and you see all these different .ai companies, or you go to the leading vendors and you see a number of these different products. And I think one of the things that I always talk to our partners about, to talk to their customers about, and we kind of take as a philosophy internally a lot, is it's critical to understand that it's not a sprint, right? Like you can crawl, walk, and run with these AI solutions, right? And I think to do that, the first thing you have to do is you really have to understand your client base and understand trends within your client's base verticals, right? So like one of the things we always look at is, okay, if you're a retail company, or if you're a financial company, or you're a healthcare company, what are the preferred methods of interactions that your companies do? Look at what do they prefer to do, in healthcare, there was, I don't have the numbers, but a majority of the people in healthcare prefer to do it, through digital, where retail a lot of times is the opposite. So I think you really need to understand your client base, understand the trends within those verticals, and then work with providers, and or partners out there that have an understanding and a proven track record of not just like delivering technology, but understanding your specific vertical, right? Like, it's not a one size fits all. And I think when you're going out there and you're looking into digital transformation and yourself and, how you guys are going to utilize it, I think it's understand, it's when you go and talk to people, make sure they're not just trying to sell you everything all in one. Oh, here's everything for you, because that's not the right way to do it. I think you have to take a step back and look at it as a crawl, walk, run. That way you understand the technology, right? I think it's also very important everybody educate themselves on the technology, because a lot of times I think the companies you deal with a lot of times, I mentioned before, don't understand it fully. So it's important to try to do as much education as you can on your own, and then obviously work with organizations that listen to you and understand your needs and have experience in the verticals that you folks work in.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. It's really, it's kind of a marathon, not a sprint, not, hey, let's do everything all at once right off the bat, because that sort of puts you in the position that Adam described earlier, which is, oh, we bit off more than we could chew here, and now we're maybe underutilizing or frankly sometimes not using anything.
It's also setting realistic expectations to dovetail on that a little bit. It's sometimes there's pressure from up above, right, at the executive level to say we need to see improvement, we need this technology. Why aren't we thinking about this technology? I mean, how many of you probably on this call have gotten the thing, hey, ChatGPT, what are we going to do with ChatGPT, or why aren't we leveraging AI? Why aren't we leveraging self-service? And so then there becomes a sense of urgency, created sense of urgency that may not be needed. And so then you don't have the proper research, proper diligence, you deploy something and thinking it's going to fix everything immediately. And the way you need to be thinking about these technologies, it's an evolution, it's a journey, you get incremental benefits along the way. And we'll talk about that a little bit further in here, but you have to just be careful that it doesn't become the hot topic of the day, and so you deploy something that doesn't fit into your company strategy and something that you could digest. And that's where we see failure. Where we see success is patience, steps, setting a plan. And anyway, that's just a couple of added tidbits to that.
Yeah, now we appreciate it. And switching gears a little bit here, earlier we mentioned it, but I really want to dig into this topic because it's a really important one. Data, right? We know data is really important. And so James, specifically for you, what are you, in terms of you and Five9, seeing with best practices around data and self-service? What might customers want to really think about and make sure they've got a good fleshed out plan in terms of their actual data strategy?
Yeah, I think the first thing to realize is that traditional data gathering is becoming more difficult, right? So cookie laws, things like that, right? Mm-hmm. And furthermore, we now have hundreds, if not thousands, of disparate services that can contain customer data, right? And yet the strategy of how you deliver that is key, right? So data is always going to be king, and we've got all these new sources for it, right? But how do we possibly gather it and use it for kind of a better customer experience, right? Mm-hmm. And not try to boil the ocean. If there are 1,000 data points available, and I can use to determine how to assist properly assist routing a customer or utilizing the IVA properly. If I try to ingest all of that as a human, all of those different data points, you're going to fail. There's no way that you as a human can kind of do that. And I think that's where the combination, and this is what Adam was talking about earlier, is we're kind of the combination of data and AI are slowly changing the game. And I think when you talk about AI, again, Adam mentioned it's what is AI, right? It's everything and anything. But I think what AI does best is taking the combination of this data, right, of all of these different disparate systems, finding patterns of success in the quote unquote more data than a human can consume realm, mm-hmm. and then applying that in real time to better serve a customer. So I think it's critical when you work, again, if you're looking at a CCaaS provider or an AI technology provider or an agent assist type technology company, I think it's important those companies understand the importance of not just data, but then how to properly consume it and integrate it to get a better or complete view of a customer journey. That includes bi-directional data. So I don't want to go too far down a rat hole, but making sure that data coming in can also be understood, acknowledged, and then be sent out to another third-party service or technology so that they can utilize it to better, to create a better customer experience. So, I think that the understandings, I think it's important, again, that people educate themselves, don't just rely on partners, the companies you're working with. Go to companies, like Inflow, that understand on a high level, they're not just a technology provider. I mean, I work at Five9. Obviously, I want you to come to Five9, but I think it's important you look at, as many companies as you can in the market to educate yourself, right? Understand and learn about what these new technologies like CDP platforms are, customer engagement platforms are, and then kind of how everything will fit together and work best to service your customer. And it goes back, just one thing I'll touch on it, Adam. I want to hear obviously what you have to say about this, but it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, is that it's important to get the right data for the right customer, not just gather everything and say, oh, we're going to do everything all at once, right? Like, it's important to put a game plan in place and to set expectations internally. Because I mean, we've worked with partners, and companies where the deals are large and such that the person's going to lose their job if they don't set expectations properly, right? So I think, regardless of where you are in your organization or what you're doing, I think it's important that you set expectations with the vendors that you're working with, and then also the people that are inside your organization, as to kind of, hey, look, we're going to deploy this now, and I know that this is the ROI because the partners and vendors that I've worked with have showed it to me. Here's the ROI there. There's where we start, and here's where we can take our next step. So really, like, mapping out what your customer journey wants to be, and then getting with the right people to help you do it. And setting success metrics so that you don't slip and fall and end up, losing your job because you made the right decision.
Yeah. And Adam, before you chime in here, we've got a question from someone attending right now that I think ties into this well, and I think it'd be great to answer it. Someone asked in the chat there, what's really the next data type to help understand CX issues and really be able to predict sort of future customer behavior? So kind of like what James talked about, finding those trends. What is how are companies identifying that today?
That's a big one, right? Because
let you take that first.
and then I'll hand it off to James, who's the expert in data. No, but listen, if you think about how consumers find information or enter to a contact center or to a company, or before they even get to the contact center, so they go to a website. They might go to an app somewhere, they go to an article. All of these pieces are digital, right? For the most part, these are all digital pieces of data. And there are so that data is being gathered somewhere, right? So where is the biggest is entry point into the web, right? And what contact centers are starting to do now are able to take those entry points where customers are coming to the web, and they're actually able to take that data to make decisions. They can either show the history, or they're showing patterns, customer patterns from your website or from the web in general. So it's beyond just your website. It used to be, sure, go to your website, you can put trackers on there, you can put journey maps on there where you can see where customers were on your website. But what about researching topics related to your company or competitors out in just to the web? That type of data is now being captured that could be utilized. Now that's getting more sophisticated in the data capture. I think going back to what James had talked about, there's a lot of data that is captured directly from contact centers or from companies via marketing, contact centers, orders, returns, all these different data points that are in various different systems that are gold mines. And but extracting that data intelligently to do something different, act differently in your contact center, either through having agent assist technologies, now feeds that information to an agent who can better serve when they are on the phone or on a chat, or within self-service technologies. So I think, the question is, what some of those newer data sources. That's interesting to me. But what's most interesting is most people aren't using the data that's readily available to them, being able to use it real time to solve problems for customers. They have the data, it's just extracting it and having a data strategy there. So that's really where I think people still need to start. 95% of the companies still need to start there to get and to have measurable ROI. And a little bit about what we do, not to have a commercial here, is that we'll take all that information of who you are, where your customers, how their customers interact with you, how you interact with your customer, and you look at run ROI sensitivity models to see, well, if I was able to if I could extract this data and present that in a self-service, and I can now digitize in that digital transformation 4% of my calls or 6% of my interactions, what does that do to my return from revenue increases or cost reductions, driving agents to more complicated interactions versus those interactions that you can now self-service. So those are just things that you need to think about with using data. So I don't know if James, you have anything else you want
to add? We could go on forever for this, but I'll try to keep it short. It's like, I think you need to look at two things. Like, we look at the past, and a lot of people ask, why did the past fail? Or we look at that a lot internally, so we don't make the same mistakes. I think if you look at the past, a lot of things were too soon. Like Nortel acquired Clarify CRM, but that was decades too soon. Cisco had like CEBP, Avaya CRM. It was extremely expensive. It was invasive. There were APIs that were like these black box languages, like Nortel, Meridian, Link, I think it was, or Avaya, ASAI. So there's all these kind of blocks. It was very expensive. Things you weren't able to kind of combine these things. So I think the difference now is why it's going to succeed is that there are technologies that are allowing you to centralize data, right? Or to bring it in. So again, I don't want to be an ad here, but the technology, the company that we created that Five9 bought, which is a company called Wendy, is now called our workflow automation platform. What that does is that allows you to connect all these different technologies, right? And then be able to bring that data into a central area and then use automation to determine what you want to do with it. So I think your question is a good one in that where should we look for data is good. I also think it's everywhere. And I think there are places that you should start with that are easy to get to, and use technologies to just start from there and bring them in. With our platform, we can go in and work like Inflow, for instance, is a perfect example where they can come in and say, hey, look, you've got these 3 different divisions, right? You've got a finance division, marketing division, sales division, BD division. They all have customer information, right? They all have applications internally that have bits of customer data. Like, let's start there, right? And let's find a way to combine the data that you already have, right? From web behavior, online sales, your product data, custom data from somebody walking in the store. Let's take that, what we have, and find a way to bring that together to create a customer experience, a better customer experience, and then go out and you can look at companies like CDPs, like data platforms that can go and then collect thousands of, like Twitter, LinkedIn, like, you think of all these different platforms out there that contain customer data. I think that is where we're going, is that you start with what you have internally, and then you slowly, based on the technology that you utilize, can bring in these external technologies based on what your company does and what it wants to provide in terms of the customer experience.
No, that's really good insights, guys, on both of you, and hope that answers your question in the audience. In short, everywhere, but start small and where the low-hanging fruit is for your specific organization. If you're not sure where that's at, companies like InflowCX can help you get your arms around some of that. Guys, really last question here. We've talked a lot about macro trends, self-service, importance of data, digital transformation. We've talked a lot about what customers are doing or should consider doing today, but really curious where you guys think this is going in the next 3 to 5 years. What should customers be thinking about to, start a plan ahead, and how do they start doing that? Adam, we'll start with you.
If I had the crystal ball and the magic button that knew exactly what the next 3 to 5 years would look like, please,
you wouldn't be on a call right now with us.
It's another webinar, right? I'm kidding, but the reason why I joke around about that is that innovation's happening so fast. I mean, look where like ChatGPT came not out of nowhere, because the people who were kind of really in the space kind of understood what was being developed, but boom, it's there. The 147 companies that were at the conference 10 months ago, they're AI companies. A couple years before, there was a small handful. So the innovation happens so fast. But here's the general sense. You have to have a strategy, right? A strategy for your company and how you want to serve customers and those type of pieces. You set that strategy, Within that strategy, you're going to find nuggets of how you can improve along the way that doesn't set you on a path of no return, I call it, right? It's a path that can evolve with the market as the market evolves. And technologies today, we call it the CX ecosystem. There's this ecosystem of technologies, and it's not always a single provider. One of the things that James talked about earlier, he says, I don't want to give a Five9 commercial. There's lots of companies out there. We sometimes get calls, companies hire us and say, well, what technology provider should I go with? And the answer is, I have no idea, right? We have to know you first, right? You have to know you first. What are your goals? What are your objectives? Where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? And you set that path, and that's how you really know how to deploy and leverage the newer technologies that are coming out as an evolution, not as a point, right? Where you make this investment and then you say, why isn't it working, right? It's a slow evolution into this space and enables you to be a little bit flexible. So, but to give you where I think it's going, obviously AI technologies, machine learning technologies are going to continue to advance. I use the word orchestration. It's the orchestration of that's going to really be the difference in the next 3 to 5 years, not the technology itself, right? So there may be ChatGPT or Google natural language and all these different things that are underneath. There's great technologies out there, but how do you make that practically apply into your contact center? And that's where I think there's going to be more evolution that's going to happen. So you'll have the innovation of AI and machine learning, but you're going to have the practical applicability of that within the contact center. People are going to build great user interfaces, great ways to extract data more intelligently. That's really where the market's going to be going. I do believe that there's already a little crossover what percentage of interactions are digital versus voice. That's going to continue to shift. Voice will never go away completely. There's certain interactions for every vertical that have to be handled with various demographics and different complexities, but it'll continue to move into digital. But more and more is going to be self-serve.
Yeah,
and that's a fact. The self-service revolution is here. It's viable. It works. And 3 to 5 years from now, there's going to be a larger percentage of interactions are going to be handled by self-service, whether it be digital, whether it be voice, and it's going to accelerate over the next 2 years. I think there's going to be more innovation next 2 years that's going to make that be able to accelerate. So.
All right, James gets a turn to look into his crystal ball now.
I'll be fast because this I could go on forever for, but I'll be fast. And it's good because Adam went on a couple of the points. So one thing I always think is fascinating, and if you think about it, you take a step back, is that innovation, like Adam said, it's coming so fast, and that I believe the same. It's like, when we went from the 1900s to the 1970s, like, technology is the only market or vertical that isn't regulated. So think about that. Everything else is generally, you're not gonna be able to go buy a car without it first going through security tests, right? You can't go get surgery without the surgical, somebody having a license to provide surgery. So technology is the only that is regulated. So it is, and especially in the contact center market with, like you said, ChatGPT, all these things emerging, I think the next 2 to 5 years are going to be incredible. I think what's going to happen is that I think that we've got the seeds to power the future here now. The IVAs, the DVAs, agent assists, WFA platforms here. But like to Adam's point, I think there is going to be a need to orchestrate all that data. And I think there's going to be a merging of technology. So I think that you're going to see in the next 5 years, a merging of technologies like Five9 that provide a number of different contact center services or solutions with like CEP companies or CDP companies that have the ability to use that technology to ingest data, not only from there, but from other areas to create a better customer experience. I think what that will end up in, long story short, is it'll make our robots better and smarter. AI engines will be able to scan every data point, previous interactions, insights into predictive actions, based on what the customer might need, proactively reaching out, virtual agents working like humans, utilizing live conversations to make real-time, customer experience interactions better. And I know that we're at time, so I'll
Yeah,
stop.
and I think the key there though, Austin, is I always just tell all of our clients is take a breath.
Yeah.
Hey, don't rush.
You have to really think through what you're doing here, but start taking advantage of what's there, but you don't have to swallow it in one bite.
Yeah, you've
Right.
got to be strategic about it, and the key is having a good plan that then you can go and execute on. So
Exactly.
now
I always say,
totally,
don't rush, but don't wait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right?
that's good.
Don't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. James, Adam, you guys, thanks both so much. We could absolutely go on to this forever, but we are coming right up on time. And for all the attendees out there, thank you guys so much for joining. If you did have a question that you put in the chat but didn't get answered, don't worry. InflowCX will contact you directly for one-on-one conversation about your unique business goals and how we might be able to help you in this conversation and make it more specific to you and your organization. In the meantime, please do feel free to reach out to us, contact@inflowcx.com, or just head over to our website. We got chat options, we got phone options, whatever way you prefer to be communicated with, we'll do that for you. Thanks everyone for attending, and we really do appreciate it. Adam, James,
Thank you.
thanks again.
Thanks, Austin. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Austin. Thanks, Adam. Take care.
Okay, see ya.